let's see. L button. Nice. Cool. I'm live.
All right, you are. Now I'm going to join you. And then, I have joined. Now, how do I request to join you again? I don't even remember. Oh, I don't think I can.
Wait, no,
because it's showing both
here.
of us. Ha.
Yeah, but you could be live on.
I could.
our
That is
account,
true. I guess I could.
but they wouldn't see the.
They wouldn't see both of us. All right. Next time I'm going to try and hook up Instagram on this side too.
Okay.
Ready? Yeah. All right. And here we are for an episode of Dualistic Unity Social that was unexpected and therefore should be a lot of fun. I was hoping that we could start off with a conversation about the incredible complexity of our awareness. One thing I really enjoy in my life is I look at our awareness very much in terms of it being like geography. Like when I think about the inside of my consciousness or the inside of all of the potential thoughts and perceptions that I could have, I see, a multiverse in general, not just a universe of things, but a multiverse of things, just more and more layers of things that could possibly exist within there. And what's interesting is that you have, some fears. For example, you have some insecurities, you've got some doubts, you have some judgments, things like that. And while all of those are very detail specific in terms of a specific judgment or a specific perception of yourself, they are also very general. And what I mean is that it's not just the things that you are afraid of, it is fear itself. It's not just the things that you're insecure about, it's insecurity itself. And it's not just the things about others that you're dealing with, but it's the entire perception of other. And I find it very interesting that you can dabble in the specifics or address the general or both at the same time. But that's essentially what you're doing. You are not just understanding the little things you are afraid of. You are understanding more about the nature of fear. You are not just understanding more about the little things you're insecure about. You're understanding more about the nature of insecurity. Because what is the nature of insecurity? Identity. Right? What is the nature of fear? Resistance. Right? What is the nature of any of this stuff that we come down to, of uncertainty, of reality? And we can focus on all the little specifics, like I said, or we can focus on generalities. And I find that to be super useful in a lot of ways, because when you really start to focus on the perception of other, it applies to everyone and everything. It applies to everything you do in every one of those specific instances. But if you were just focused on your perception of the other in one person, well, it's kind of like taking a much smaller bite of the very same problem.
Exactly. And the things that we go through, that lack of division there is, and so it's never just me going through something and I just pin it to some familiar story, but that in no way has direct credence whatsoever. It just allows me to deal with the thing you're talking about, either insecurity itself or fear itself. And I just translate it into that. And so it's not even about necessarily overcoming the fear. It's the letting go of the definition of it, like what the root of that is being me. Like you said, the insecurity stems from identity. The fear stems from other, in a sense, at least the
like
psychological.
Spiders, right? Like I'm not necessarily afraid of spiders. I'm afraid of dying.
Oh, shit. I've never really thought about it like that. Oh, man. We're not it's never a fear of the thing itself. It's the fear of what would happen. And that stems from the story, the narrative. And so everything that we're always going through is working through that. Like I am this. It's like, no, you're not. But there's a lot of complexity to that, both, individually, collectively, out that. And so the working through, there is so much to your false certainty. It's always false certainty. And so it's not so much believing that you're something else, it's just letting go of the certainty that you're that thing. Oh, which because that's self-defining. All of the definitions are self-defining,
Now, what
and
if
they're
that's
all
what we are? What if that's what all of us are? It's just part of the process of you understanding that. Just all of the angles you could look at the problem of identity, all of the angles you could possibly look at the perception of division to process the true nature of what it is, the reality behind it. And that's exactly what every life is. That's exactly what every incarnation is another part of the same process of understanding something that we kind of just chose to forget.
and so every person you interact with, thing you go through is just you and a variation of that, but like you it's not for you, but as you, but there is the opportunity in every moment, and everything is like perfectly variable in a sense, like perfectly placed at all times in that it is what it is with an opportunity, and it's how tightly or how much I want to hold on, or how willing I am to let go, that I can see the opportunities in it, and recognize that it's just me working through.
Seamless is a word I like to use. It really is a seamless experience of all of these different variations meeting exactly the people that they need to meet at the right time to be that variation. And we are one of those variations. And yet, all of the other variations of this variation also simultaneously exist in a universe that complements them accordingly. And isn't that fun? I wanted to take a moment because we're just getting into this episode here and mention that we have one ticket left for our October retreat. I am very excited about this. October 5th to October 9th, we are going to be having another mini retreat in Vancouver, Canada. These mini retreats are epic. They're fantastic. They're such a great way to just sit and be the universe and to actually feel like it is as light and enthusiastic as it can be, because it really is about that. It really is just about enjoying what you are without having to think about it, prop it up, maintain it, do any work whatsoever, just to be. And Andrew, I want to mention quickly that your video about the last Vancouver retreat was fucking inspired. It was a really nice video. It really captured exactly what it is that we're doing at these events, because you can try and describe it, but it really is a feeling. It's a feeling that we're all kind of looking for. And I guess that's why we do it. Is I've described it to people before. It's as close to heaven on earth as we can make right now. And so for the very short period of time that you come into our reality, it really is an opportunity for us to just share our universe with you. Not the way that we, think about things, but the way that we actually are, which is light and present and excited to be as a whole. And you might think to yourself, well, that sounds like a lot of work, but then you're just trying to figure it out as a philosophy. There is no philosophy. Don't come to these retreats expecting high-minded cerebral conversations about the universe, because that might happen, but it only happens by virtue of us already laughing at things in a way that leads us to that conversation. The laughter, the lightness, the being, that's the whole focus in these events. So if you can join us, definitely do.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm having fun with those clips and vlogs and putting all that stuff together, and I've had up until even just recently, when I started seeing it for myself, did I even have any way of describing the retreats, because it's not even a description, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. There is no guarantee. There is no one guiding you necessarily. It's just your experience is on you, but there's the potential to make that whatever you would like. But it's from you. It's always coming from you. There's just less of a push and a pull because, as people aren't doing it for themselves, they try and get other people to do certain things. They're not willing to take that responsibility. And so taking that responsibility, recognizing that it's just on you, your entire experience is on you and your response and your willingness to pay attention to what's actually happening as opposed to what is going on in your head and your assumptions about what's happening. It allows you to see that, oh, you can just be free. Oh, you don't have to judge yourself. All this judgment you think you're getting, it's like, it's not there anymore. You're like, fuck, it was just me. It was just me holding that judgment, holding myself back from being, but from just being able to let go and freely be myself without a hesitation or the frequent check-ins and the fucking breaks and, pumping those brakes like, oh, I don't know, things are getting uncertain. I've been existing in this freedom uncertainty for a while. I might have to check back in and see how things are going. Make sure everyone else is appreciating me or whatever. It's like, no, you don't have to do that because no one's expecting shit from you. Because no one's expecting to be something for themselves. Because as long as they're expecting to be something for themselves or fit some fucking correct way to be, they're expecting something in return, some sort of response. And without that, there isn't the expectation for the response. So everyone's just living for them. And then you just live. Like you just live. That's it. That's it. Like you're just there as yourself, just without so many rigid holding yourself back hesitations. And those are our whole story is the rigidity. Oh, I'm this type of person. I'm this, I'm that. So I can't do this because being this type of person means this. And that's what all of the hesitation comes from. But it's just coming back to being yourself, which is the easiest thing you can do, but is so foreign that it, you start getting used to it. And then it's like, oh shit, I have just been doing this the whole time, just with a massive degree of hesitation.
I think that's my favorite part of the retreats is that by the second or third day, people start to recognize like this isn't really a retreat. This is kind of like the best sleepover I've ever wanted to have. Because that's what it's meant to be. It's meant to be like kind of a callback to childhood to some degree. Like your life can be play, regardless of the shit that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, regardless of the things that you might have to be concerned about, regardless of your bills, regardless of your job, regardless of all of that stuff. Because while that stuff is heavy, that stuff is far more fucking heavy because you carry it when you don't need to. That is what makes it far worse, is the fact not just that you have to do those things, but you spend so much time thinking about it when you're not doing it. And so it's like you never stop doing it. This is the reason that there are weekends. We were like, yeah, it's Friday. And then by the time it dawns on us that Sunday's coming, the weekend starts to suck. Why? Because all of a sudden we're putting the whole week back on our shoulders willingly, just through thinking about it, through fearing it, through holding an opinion about it and dwelling upon it. It takes up our attention. It takes up our space. It takes up our energy. It sucks the fucking life out of us is what it does. And it's so much heavier than just having to do the fucking job and pay your bills. Right? But it's a practice of being able to go, oh, I'm thinking about something I'm not actually impacting at all right now. Why the fuck am I doing that? And then just stop through a recognition, not beating yourself up because you were doing it, not thinking like, oh, I've got a long journey before I can let that shit go. Don't do that. Just go, oh, I'm thinking about something useless. Just admit it to yourself that at the moment you are wasting fucking time. So all you have to do is just admit it. I am thinking about something, and that thinking is doing nothing except taking up my attention. That's all it's doing. It's taking up my attention to make me feel like I'm doing something, instead of actually taking advantage of the moment I have right now to relax enough so I can get some clarity to deal with whatever comes next better. Because the pressure of that ongoing weight makes it impossible for you to do anything other than look for a cessation of your suffering. That is not problem solving. That is not problem solving. You have to get away from the need to get away from that suffering in order to have some clarity, some long term vision, rather than just looking for the instant gratification of what feels good next. So you have to take the weight off when you can, because that is the only way that you'll gain some clarity about your life. You have to take the weight off and understand that you're holding it simply because you think that nothing's going to happen in your life unless you do. It's not helping. Pick up the weight when you need to carry it. Put it down the rest of the time. Allow yourself to grow. Even bodybuilders know, like, it's not lifting weights all the time that makes you gain strength. It's resting every once in a while. It's recuperating every once in a while. If you don't do that, you're just beating the shit out of yourself for nothing.
For fucking nothing, because that experience going through without the focus on those things is all that it is. It's all that's left. But it's even the recognition, not that, just as you said, like, it's not about getting over it or getting rid of it or any of that. It's realizing that you can handle whatever comes around, like whatever shit comes up. It's like, oh yeah, I got this. Oh yeah, I've been here before, dealt with this, and gotten through it. And each time, it's like something new has the potential to pop up. But it's like as you work through yourself, and it's just another opportunity to let go of the focus on that thing. Like that's you processing, unraveling is something that you catch and you're like, oh, that. And then it's an opportunity to let something else go. But it's just that over and over and over and over and over again. And it's always just the mechanism of my brain, of my mind to find a certainty. As soon as something becomes uncertain, it's like I want to find some other certainty, and then that comes up. It's like, no, it's none of them. There's nothing that adequately defines you ever. It's the letting go of the defining.
That was it. That's what changed my life. I was explaining this to somebody earlier today. Like, we are so prone to tell ourselves a story based on our bias. And we don't recognize that the reason that we do that is because the alternative is accepting that we don't know. And what's worse about that is that while we can tell ourselves any story that we want to, we almost always focus on the story that we're afraid of the most. You know, it's kind of like that time where I think it was Einstein. At the front of his class, he decided he was going to do the 9 times table on the chalkboard in front of all of his students. And so he did 1 times 9 is 9, 2 times 9 is 18, 3 times 9 is 27, all the way down. And then when he got to 9 times 9, I think he wrote like 82. And all of his students laughed. And he's like, isn't it funny? I get it right 9 times out of 10, but you focus on the one failure. And that's what we do to ourselves all the time. The fact is you've succeeded far more times than you've failed. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. But you don't think about that when you're trying to figure out whether or not you can move forward. You think about your fears. You think about what you're afraid of. And then your brain tells you, well, that's got to be the case because we're thinking about it. And because you believe everything your brain pops out, it actually just exacerbates the fear, which makes it seem even more real because now you're focused on it even more. And it becomes this vicious fucking loop of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And all you have to do is accept you don't know. You don't know. You've never known. In fact, if you were to be honest and think about it and think back to all the times you've told yourself you failed and you didn't, you would actually recognize that most of the time you're full of shit. You're just holding on to a perception of yourself and justifying it with thought. You could think 1,000 fucking things, all of which boost you up, but you are choosing to think about things that validate your belief that you are less, that you are not enough, because you're afraid that's the case. You're cherry picking, whether you want to admit it or not.
Oh my God. Always cherry picking. Like there's infinite perceptions right now. And I'm focused on very select ones. And going through things, it's like I don't think I've ever remembered not something I deemed a failure. Like, that shit starts coming up and it's like, holy shit, the odds are stacked against being worthless, right? Like, it's not even a close game. It's a fucking blowout. It's that 9 out of 10, 99 out of 100, 199 million to the billion. Like, oh my God. And yet, those, like, certain memories of certain things are focused, and it's like a fucking handful that sometimes come up here and there. And then there's things that come up, as I go along. But like, cherry picking is like an understatement. Picking out of a fucking ocean of cherries, a couple cherries. And yet it helps you feel certain, feel sure. Like, at least I have that perspective of that, and my judgment about that, despite it being negative and weighing down my experience, at least I have that. And it's like, meh, you don't, though. You don't. You're just trying to hold on to that thing that you're holding on to, like grasping it. It's like holding on to threads as it's unraveling, just clinging on. It's like, oh, but I gotta be something. I gotta know something. I gotta have some idea what's going on, because the alternative is just uncertainty and faith in yourself, moment to moment, moving forward. That's it. That's it. Without the idea and the story, it's the same as it's always been, but you have more sensitivity to everything, and you're actually seeing things as they are, as opposed to your judgment and opinion of it. But it just feels new. And so there's a part of me that's like, oh, I gotta, and I'll just grasp for anything. Just grasp for anything. Like, oh, but this means this. I gotta be this. Oh, I'm at least this. It's like, yeah, no, it's not like it's like there's like layers and layers of bumpers on the side, like you're bowling, and then you realize, oh no, it's none. It's not even a little bumper, like little speed bumper on the side. It's like, that's not even you. And then it's like there's moments where it feels like there's none, and then like, I don't know, and you build back up a couple more, or at least take it more seriously, and then like, yeah, but I can handle it. I've been handling it anyway. It's just the perception of needing a bumper, because you don't think, because you're self-defining and thinking that you need them. But it's like the concern of needing it kind of creates the feeling of it. And it's just weight, despite never being in any other situation other than you here now in uncertainty, stepping through yourself and either having faith in yourself or not.
Or investing in another illusion of false certainty just so I can go back full circle to recognize that it never worked out. And that's really it. We were talking about, like, you can go into all kinds of different uncertainties, or recognize that you're dealing with uncertainty as a whole, right? Which is what this is. I mean, my entire life being an entrepreneur, being on my own, starting up DU with you, doing the podcast, content, all that stuff, the retreats now. This is all just like, what am I really, uncertain about being able to do next? And then whatever that big uncertain thing is, I'll go and I'll do that, or whatever it is I feel that I can conquer next, I will go and tackle that uncertainty and realize that I don't need to feel certain. I can just move through the uncertainty. And so this is all this is an exercise in greater and greater and greater uncertainty, which is another way of saying greater and greater faith. And this is the reason that the podcast is an exercise in faith for me, because I'm not trying to change the world. I can't change the world. There's nothing to save, and there's no one to save. But what there are unending ripples all the time. But the more I'm trying to control those ripples, the more they come across with the feeling of control, with the intention of control, with the underlying implication that you also must have control. And so the podcast to me is just a bunch of messages in a bottle thrown out into an endless ocean. Just for the sake of throwing them out there, just because I can. Whatever you do with them is up to you. It's an act of faith. Everybody who's listening to this, I have faith in you. I have absolute faith in you. I have no idea what the fuck you're doing. I have no idea what you have in mind right now, but I have faith that you will figure it out, that you will find a way, that you are in fact carrying on a ripple and impacting me, and have been my entire experience. I have faith in all of us, and it's because I'm willing to be uncertain about what any of what we're doing is doing. I don't know. I don't know what's happening, but that's the message I want to get across to everyone. You don't have to fucking know. You don't have to know. How you feel right now about your own existence is enough. You don't have to know how it ripples onto everyone else. Just that it does. Just that it does. And then have that play out over time. We know what control does. It took us thousands of years to get where we are right now. What does surrender do? What does faith in each other do? What does uncertainty do? Where does that go? What kind of evolution does that entail? What kind of society grows up around that? Around the acceptance that we're never in control, that the best we can hope for is alignment with what is rather than conquering what is.
Exactly. And oh man, oh fuck. Uh, that was well said. Yeah.
I wish I knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, great
And
quote.
that's very much the point, right? Like, it's just, I know what I feel like being here right now, and I'll express this to you and everybody else. I feel like I am doing everything that I could ever want to do. And it took me forever to figure out that it was giving up everything I ever wanted to do that allowed me to find the state of mind where I can actually enjoy this. It's not just about doing the podcast, because I could be doing the podcast from a terrified frame of mind, trying to cater to our audience, trying to grow it, trying to do all that stuff. I could be in a totally different state of mind. I could have all of this, the ability to go and travel and meet cool people. I could have the podcast. I could have cool people to talk to and still be in a state of mind where I'm terrified of doing the wrong thing all the time. And so it's not about what you're doing. It's about what you're willing to let go of, so that way you're not the source of your own conflict. That's really what it is. So that way, because I've done a bunch of shit jobs, quote unquote shit jobs, and what made them educational was learning to let go of the idea that they were shit, that there was something more important I needed to be doing other than, shoveling out a ditch or spraying out a car wash. At that exact moment, I was learning how to come to terms with me, learning how to let go of my judgment of myself and where I was and my progress and all that stuff. Because had I not done that, I would have gotten all bitter and resentful. I would have seen different avenues. I would have taken different roads. I would not have noticed other opportunities to question what I was capable of, because I would have been telling myself, nothing. That's why I'm here.
Because it's not so much what you're saying or talking about at all. Like the feeling of it is you being it. It's how you're living that has that influence. So that's in opportunity and potential in no matter what situation, even when you're by yourself. Like, of course, that has impact on things, the way that you live, how you act. And then, the words or communication is just an expression of that. But it's not that that's what's doing anything, because there's no one else. Like, there's no one else to get it. There's no one else to understand. And so, of course, it comes down to your experience, your willingness, moment to moment, to, yeah, let go, to let go of that false certainty that's veiling you from what is, and for no one else's benefit. Like, for no one else's benefit except your own, because that even is not your own. Like, if it's the idea of someone else, it's not yours. Like, and so for it to be yours as everyone else, it's got to be for you, because there's no one else. Like, so it couldn't possibly be living for someone else in order to have any degree of sway. And not to say that you don't always have sway, but to have that sway, it's like there isn't anyone else. And that's wholeheartedly taking in the application side of being it, of like, okay, you talked about it, you feel like you get it. It's like, what does that mean? Like, what does that even do? It's like, unless the application's there, it's It's like a hollow. The words are hollow in a sense. If they have intention, means that you're not living for you. But there's the option to say whatever you want and put things out there. And so, yeah, that's the message in the bottle analogy. That's all that it is. I don't know where it's going. I don't know how it's going to be perceived or resonated with. It's just, I'm good. Let's chat.
Because this is fun for me. Because this is fun for me. Because that's the whole point. Like, be the change you want to see in the world. It's really what they're getting across, right? Just be change. Just be change. Because most of the suffering we see in the world around us is the result of stagnation, of the desire to control things so that they're very much like they were yesterday. Because then they're familiar and not such a reason to be afraid. It's interesting. Like I said, people think that focusing on your own existence is somehow selfish. That's just because they're not focused on their existence. They're focused on the character they think they are. Their existence is here and now. To focus on the relationship that they have with themselves here and now is a very different thing than to focus on where you think you're going and what you think you're worth and how other people perceive you. It's a very different thing. Very. But that's really what it is. That's what all of this is. To take your own existence as your priority here and now is to actually apply unity as a way of being. Because in focusing on you and abandoning the idea of other, the idea that you have influence over other at all, you are abandoning the idea that you are divided from anything. You're abandoning ideas which are divisive as truth, because they're not truth. And as such, you are just the universe in motion. You are reality in motion. You are you in motion, as I am, as we all are, you in motion. It's just that I look at it as I'm in motion.
Yeah, because prioritizing the character, the story, isn't prioritizing here and now. Like that, that makes a lot of sense right there. Because the prioritization of your experience is just here now, the prioritization of that. And so that selfish, the mainstream selfishness actually has nothing to do with prioritizing your experience. It actually diminishes it because you're focused on a timeline, because when it's selfish, it's not for this moment, it's for some other moment in the future that then veils you. Like our selfish actions stem from something outside of here now. And then as you prioritize your experience, the actuality of prioritizing your experience is just your experience here now. And so there isn't, it's like a whole different, entirely different experience, but like a different track in a sense where certain decisions just make sense. There isn't something pulling you as hard away from seeing kind of what's obvious. But the more you invest in ideas and perceptions, you're always just looking at fragments of things. And so it's going to inevitably diminish your experience, but then diminish your clarity and ability to respond and react and do all of the things that are a lot easier to do in regards to having faith in yourself. Like being able to just step through, the best option that you have is to just pay attention to where you're at. Like that makes having quote unquote faith in yourself, that is having faith in yourself, but it makes that process a lot easier because you're actually seeing what's going on instead of your assumptions of what's going on. And that's always the case. It's never your assumptions ever. It's always just where you're at. And so it's the best possible thing you could ever do. It's for building that faith in yourself or having that, or fucking just living. It's not even better. It's just you're living or you're not.
Just growth or stagnation, right? That's really it. It's not that one's better than the other. It's just really depends on whether or not you like being in conflict with things. Right? That's really all it is. Sometimes conflict's a little all right, but how often do we feel like we're in conflict? And if we could, we'd get out of that. easy to forget that we kind of got our way there perceptually by being in conflict with things over and over and over again because we enjoyed how it made us feel. I can beat that. I can be more than this. I can be in control. I can get to where I think I should be, right? Again, somebody was saying here, and this is important, but we need to think of the future to make a goal. In the future, the question isn't whether or not you're making a goal in the future. The question is whether or not that goal can change. The question is whether or not you need to prove yourself through that goal. What's the reason for the goal? Would you do the goal if you were perfectly happy and complete right now? Would you? Would you do it if it was just on you on a desert island by yourself? Would you be like, yeah, that's something I would put energy into? Or is it driven by some need to feel more valuable, some need to feel more certain, some need to be perceived in a certain way, right? And if so, there's nothing wrong with that either. But you're going to change, you're going to grow over time if you have the courage to actually look and ask yourself, why do I need this shit? Then all of a sudden, that goal may not seem as shiny. Are you willing to give it up? Or are you going to look at yourself as a failure for giving up that goal? Oh, I'm being wishy-washy. That's not a positive trait. You know, I gotta be certain about where I want to go in life, who I want to be, you know, and all the drag that goes with that shit. So it really comes down to what's more important to you, the goal or the fact that you keep kicking the shit out of yourself here and now?
Oh man, because as that priority shifts, it's there's never some correct thing you can settle upon. Oh, just be, better at making decisions. Oh, you gotta, you accomplish this goal or be quicker with your decisions. It's like even that, there's not a right or wrong because as soon as you think, oh, I should be this, then as soon as you feel like you're not, there's judgment. So it's always that, should. I should be this or that. And even that, like even in that example is funny because it's not necessarily, and that's, language, and I understand it's only means of communication, but yeah, it's never anything you can settle upon. There's no correct way, no correct path, no set guidelines or trajectory. You're just sitting in uncertainty in each and every moment with the opportunity to make certain decisions, to just, and not even do that because that creates a whole situation around it. It's just you willing to continue to be uncertain and have faith in yourself or not have faith in yourself. And continuing to step through is having faith in yourself. And it's never that you're doing anything wrong. So no matter when it goes down, that desire to settle upon some measurement of how you're doing may be there, but that is not it. Like it's just wherever you are, there you are, whatever you're going through, there it is, you going through it, and your opinion of it being something that should or shouldn't be gone through is irrelevant, is entirely irrelevant. It's actually the judgment of something being something you should or shouldn't go through, or a right or a wrong, or a good or a bad thing to feel. That's keeping it as that, as opposed to that state of freedom. And so it's always just letting go of that opinion of something that, and then it's right there. And then you're right there. But it's like those, no, my opinion is incredibly self-defining. Almost entirely.
And it makes you easy to manipulate. It's really important to understand that, like, if we look at the world the way it is right now, and this is a pretty common thing, like we shouldn't be here in terms of climate change and the environment and whatnot. There are people who are like, absolutely, you're absolutely correct. We shouldn't be here. And we're here because of you. We're here because of you. And you should feel like a piece of shit. Make sure that you recycle, put all your shit in the blue bin, but not all the blue shit, because not all the shit in the blue bin, because the people who run the blue bin program now, they don't actually work for the government. They're actually mostly privatized. So they only take some plastics because they're actually funded by the companies that make plastics. But the point being is that those companies are never going to stop making plastics. So they make more and more and more and more plastics. But as long as you feel like a piece of shit because you're telling yourself the world shouldn't be like this, you're the problem. And we can focus on you. Instead of going, well, whether it should be or it shouldn't be, this is where we are. Plastic seems to be a fucking issue. Let's look at who's making it. But if I'm beating myself up for not making a better world the way it should be, I'm never looking at the way it is. I'm never looking at the fact that, maybe you aren't the person that you should be beating up here. Maybe you aren't the person you should be judging. Maybe you should just be looking at the system itself and going, okay, we can change this, instead of looking at someone to blame, especially yourself or others.
Yeah, because as you beat yourself up, you're not seeing things for what they are. Like, you're not seeing reality when you're beating yourself up. You're seeing a veil. You're focused on something else than what's happening. So you can't even adequately handle anything if you're focused at all on its self-judgment, on any degree of self-judgment. And it's fucked how we do this, and we think we're doing like a good thing. Oh, I deserve this self-judgment. Meanwhile, you're just continuing to do the thing that's perpetuating you doing the thing that you're judging yourself for. And so it's almost, there's like a egotistical dissatisfaction in not judging yourself, because that's what's maintaining it. Like, that right there, as you're judging yourself, is the wall in between. Like, it's whatever. It's not this whole thing with all of these things going on, like it is, but in the moment to moment, if you're judging yourself, that's the entire wall right there. If you have an opinion about what you're experiencing, what you're going through, that's the whole wall right there. It's not like a grand Great Wall of China sort of thing. It's like moment to moment, you're sure you could perceive it as Great Wall of China, but like, you're standing in front of the wall, and there is a certain thing you're focused on that isn't that. And like, it's almost like every time you have a pair of ladders, a ladder next to you. So if you just took a step back, it's like, oh, I don't have to solely focus on that. It's like, oh, some other options come into play. Oh, I'm actually not this piece of shit. And now I can see what's going on, and now I can have options. But as soon as there's a thought and we focus on it, it's like, zoop, we like sprint back up to the wall, and we're like, oh shit, all I see is this wall. And then as we're willing to relax or let go of our certainty, even about our self-judgment, that we did anything wrong, because there's no certainty that you're doing anything wrong. There's just feelings, and certain feelings that come up that then you have a resistance to, and then you judge yourself for feeling this certainty that you did something wrong, and it's still stemming from certainty. And so as you let go of that certainty of you having ever done anything wrong, as if it wasn't perfectly in alignment and flow and whatever, you take that step back, and then you can see more of what's actually happening, and you're actually sensitive to what's actually happening, as opposed to your opinion of what's happening. But as soon as that opinion comes up about the situation, about yourself, it's like you're right back up against that wall, not seeing that there are things happening, and you don't have to believe that that wall is all that there is. It's like there's other perceptions, and you can't be sure that you've ever done anything incorrectly. Like, you can't escape the flow. So even the judgment that there is anything incorrect happening moment to moment is fucking wrong also, because there's no adequate certainty. Like, there can never be that certainty. And that analogy of like the demons running back, it's like that screaming for some degree of certainty, as some of it starts to be let go. It's like, oh, but it's got to be this, it's got to be this, and then it'll turn into a story, just to have that story mulling around. And it's like all these different things are like, where the fuck did that come from? It's like, yeah, it's the pull for false certainty due to, yeah, a habitual and lack of faith and whatever. But
Well, now
it's
that's
over.
interesting, right? Like, because we tend to think like, well, it's the wall is the problem. The wall is the problem. It's like, the wall is a result. The wall is a result. The wall is not a problem. The wall is what you keep turning to for false certainty, right? And it's just because you're afraid, but you're afraid for what you deem to be a lot of reasons. Like something comes in, you feel super rattled by it, you immediately start to think, because you think that's going to help. That makes you feel a little bit better. If you can just rationalize what the fuck is happening, right, you're going to be fine. But you don't recognize the reason that you got rattled so hard to begin with is because you're pulled so fucking tight, right? It's like any like metal wire, right? If you pull it tight, it vibrates like hard when you just strum it, right? But if it's nice and loose, it doesn't vibrate. Okay? Well, we are pulled so fucking tight by our stress, by our pressure, by the pressure to be certain. And whatever we think is happening must be happening. Whatever I think I am, it must be it. Because if it's not it, then I might be wrong. And uncertainty is a terrible thing. And so now I got to maintain it and defend it and build it up and hold it out and show it to other people and do all this. It's a huge amount of stress. All of a sudden, something comes in and it vibrates me like a motherfucker. Well, why? Well, because I'm uptight. I'm uptight. But that massive vibration causes me to tense up more instead of realize the vibration seems so intense because you're so strung out, because you're so uptight. If you were to relax a bit, you wouldn't be as rattled by each and every thought. Not every note would suddenly just make you hum like that, right? And it's just because you're loosening the string. It's all it is to understand that the pressure you put yourself under is going to largely dictate your response to the moment each and every time. So sometimes we find ourselves getting angry, lashing out at people. We're like, I don't know why I'm doing that lately. Look at the overall pressure. Look at how many times in a week, for example, you'll take 5 or 10 minutes for yourself and just let go of what you think you have to keep. The string is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And then all of a sudden somebody comes up to you and like, hey, good morning. And you're like, fuck you. And it's just like, what the hell just happened? You're like, why did I get so angry? It's because that minor vibration caused you to vibrate real hard because you're so uptight. And you're like, why am I getting so angry? The overall attitude towards existence. How tense are you about existing? How stressed are you about being here now? And the less you are stressed about that, the easier it is to deal with all the ripples as they go through. The easier it is to deal with whatever vibrations come because you're not making it worse just through being uptight.
Ooh. And it's like the tension almost is the tightness or the looseness like comes from the center of the string in a sense. And then it's like either looser to tighter or just fucking tight. And like the loosening can it stems from you always. Stems from me always. Always. My environment is reflective, but it's not directly reflective. It's like there's like a a pull or a dip or a whatever back and forth, but it always comes from the middle. Like when you pull a string, it's very hard to pull from the side, right? There's way more tension to sway. It's like, you pull a string from here and it like because there's so much resistance here, but you're more towards center and it's way easier to tug that string. And it's like I'm varying between that and recognizing, is it a story that I'm telling myself or is it not? And there's so much tension that's been built just from trying to be in control of things that when it's looser, it's like, oh, you're like, I'm like remembering what it was like to be loose, to live freely. And it's like a old memory in a sense. Like playing is what it feels like. It's that lack of hesitation, lack of concern, lack of knowing that some way that you act is going to be perceived in a certain way or feeling like it is. And it's unreal how it's just been my judgment of myself, my weight that I bring with, my certainty even of where something else is coming from. And it's just been a building and building and building and building of that. And it's all here, but it's like working out a string. Like, you have a guitar for a long time, those strings start to get looser and looser the more you play it, the more you're willing to be uncertain. It has I don't want to say progressive nature because that again is just maintaining some degree of an idea of what's happening other than me just relaxing right now, me willing to pay attention to what's real right now. Because that's all that the sway ever is. And you're both, that component and the entirety of it. So as you change, it changes. You're willing to let go, it changes, or tighten up, it changes, always having influence on the entire thing in some capacity.
Based on how much you relax or tense up. That's really it. That's why I say, like, the words are unimportant. Like, it's really not the words that comes across. It's how fucking tense you are or how relaxed you are. That is what's coming across to everyone, because that is what we're all going through as a general attitude towards existence itself. How tense am I about being here? Am I afraid of death? You know, am I focused on the future? Am I thinking about the past? Am I dealing with a huge narrative rather than just narrative itself? Because there is a very big difference between dealing with the entire timeline of Andrew and dealing with the fiction of Andrew itself. Specifics and generals and generalities, as always. As we started, this has been a fun episode. We only have a few minutes left here, but I wanted to say hello to everyone who can join us. We really appreciate you being here. If you aren't aware, we have a mini retreat coming up in Vancouver on October 5th to October 9th. Last mini retreat of the year. This one's going to be a hell of a lot of fun, and it's leading up to our Netherlands retreat, which is coming up on November 11th. Oh my God, the Netherlands is going to be just fucking amazing. If you are a member of the community and you want to meet people who have gone to the previous retreats, if you're not a member of the community and you're just looking for a place to be yourself without any expectations and without any schedule saying you must be here at this time to learn about your chakras and shit like that, that's never going to happen at one of our retreats. Our retreats are very much just you here now and your relationship with you here now. And that is the entire focus for each and every individual. That's the point. It's not about all of us being in this together. It's about you being in this for you. And we do the best that we can to facilitate all of that because you deserve it. It's about fucking time you had the space and time to just apply everything you've wanted to learn about yourself in an environment where other people are doing the exact same thing and everybody's reminding you we all judge ourselves. Everybody is echoing the fact that, yeah, I have no idea what the fuck is going. Everyone is in this together in that they are all on their own and we can relate to what that feels like. And in that we can come together. So if you can make it to the Netherlands, we would love to see you.
Reminds me of the Glycerine lyric. I've been listening to that song a shitload since you asked me to add it to the queue. This is at karaoke at the last retreat for those listening. You're like, Glycerine. And I was like, Listerine? Listerine? How do you spell that one exactly? And you've sang it before, but I finally listened to it. And yeah, like the part, like, I'm never alone. I'm alone all the time. Are you at one? Or do you lie? I've cried to that like 3 times in the last week and gotten goosebumps like every time. Like, fuck, god damn. Even last week when I wasn't feeling so great, but it's yeah, I mean the retreats, it's so dope. I'm like, fuck, we're going like halfway across the world for a quote unquote work trip to fucking hang out with a bunch of cool people and just chill the fuck out. Just chill out and relax. Like, that is the best thing you could ever do for anyone is chill out yourself. Like, chill the fuck out and just fucking let go, let loose. Like, holy shit. It's funny. It's taken me, some time. But then again, it's like, yeah.
Makes it worthwhile. That's the nice thing about it taking so much goddamn time is that it makes it worthwhile. Like, that's the thing. Like, I look back at my life. I'm like, I'm so glad that I went through hell. Like, I'm so very glad I went through hell because I have a fuck ton to learn from. Like, it really sits deep, and that's really what we're doing is we're going through as much hell as we need to convince ourselves that we've learned. And then it's just self-acceptance as an application, integration with your life. So often, like, we're so afraid to just accept ourselves because frankly, most of our friends know us to be little whiny bitches. It's like, how am I going to get along with people if not bitching about my life like they do? We actually worry about losing those fucking friends. Isn't that funny? We worry about losing the friends who do nothing but piss and whine about existing. We worry that they're going to be upset that we're no longer pissing and whining about existing, that we're not going to fit into their little pissing and whining group. Isn't that terrible? And then we wonder why our life sucks. Our life sucks because we keep wanting to be involved with all these groups that frankly aren't fucking helping us and don't reflect our actual principles or our priorities. That's pretty much it. Live for you. The rest will fall into place for sure. I think that's more or less it. I do want to say just very quickly that in the Netherlands, while we will not have a chakra class, and you will not see Andrew and I leading like a group meditation because that's likely not going to happen. There will be karaoke. There will be karaoke. We will be having karaoke. Karaoke is such a very big part of our retreats because, as somebody once said at one of our retreats, life is karaoke. It is very much the attitude that you treat karaoke that you can treat your life with. You can just sing for you. And the rest of us who want to see you sing for you can dance to it. And then we can switch and take turns. And between all of us doing that, it's a real fucking party.
Oh God, it is unreal how like I've had this whole narrative of what things are, like you're getting to timeline journey. It's like, what the fuck else would it be other than just prioritizing your experience and having the willingness to do so? It's the most freeing, easiest thing you can ever do because like you're already doing it and it doesn't take. Oh God, it's like trying to be something is fucking exhausting as shit. So fucking exhausting trying to be something for someone. Like for who? For who? And so of course, like the all it comes down to is doing it for you and just you. And that's the beauty of the retreats is you're not expected to be anything at all whatsoever. There's no correct way to do anything. Just do it. Just do it. Just do you, be you. Just that. Just do
Way
that.
better than meditation. Somebody just
So
said
much
you should
better.
do meditations instead. Why? Why do you need to meditate outside of the fact that you're trying to escape how you think the rest of the fucking time? Your life can be a meditation. You don't need to sit down in the lotus position and go, and now I'm not going to take my thoughts seriously. You cannot take your thoughts seriously the whole fucking time. Your life can be a meditation. The fact that you need to separate it to a certain time means you're not applying it the rest of the time, right? It's like going to church on Sunday and the rest of the time just being a selfish bastard.
Exactly. If it's not a moment to moment your experience, you're now then what the fuck is it? So even the meditation, the whole thing of that. It's like as long as it's something other than prioritizing your life, then it's not that. It's doing it so that you can I guess it's in some convoluted way attempting to prioritize your life, but it's trying to escape your opinions of things while you maintain those opinions of things because that's where the weight of the perception comes from is the truth you give it moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. So you go meditate and then fucking judge someone and be sure of it. And that's just reinforcing your opinion, your perspective as any degree of truth. And if you question that, if you're willing to look at that and be like, oh yeah, but it's never the truth. My perception of what's happening, going on, my opinion of something is never the truth. Then you're left with what it is, and you're actually looking at it as opposed to judging it or yourself. And that's all that meditation could possibly be because there's no other
Literally
experience
attention.
to be had.
Yeah.
Attention.
Meditation is attention. That's what meditation is. Attention. Why do you have to close your eyes to pay attention? Why do you have to sit still to pay attention? You don't. You just need to know what your distractions are. That's it. And then again, that is both the generality and the specific. It's a hell of a journey to nowhere. This has been a lot of fun. We are going to wrap this up here, but I want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Just so you know, our Sunday schedule has changed slightly. I'm going camping with my daughter for a few days, and so we will be starting around 3 or 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. If you'd like to join us for an episode of Raw, we'll be there, and then we have Patreon directly after that. Thanks so much, Andrew. This has been a lot of fun, man.
It's been a blast. And yeah, talk to everyone soon.